The Philadelphia Eagles are now one win away from making it back to the Super Bowl, thanks to the defense being able to hold off Matt Stafford and the LA Rams to the tune of a 28-22 victory in the divisional round of the postseason. Wasn't all it was cracked up to be for Jalen Hurts. Hopefully he's okay. We'll find out after the game. But Saquon Barkley again against these Rams, breaking 2 big touchdown runs on their way to victory today. He, as well, I should say, as this Eagles defense, the star of the show for the Eagles. And then there was the weather, which played a huge factor. Welcome in to the Bet Parks post-game show presented by Ponley Hockey from Parks Casino in Bensalem, just 20 minutes north of Center City, Philadelphia. Mark Farzetta along with Mr. Seth Joyner and Derek Gunn. Seth, you look at this victory today by the Eagles. Who would you dime as the star of the show?
Hey, listen, man, Saquon is just phenomenal. 205 yards rushing on a day like today. He saved the day. They couldn't get anything going in the pass game, long or short. You know, when Jalen was on point, he had a couple of critical drops. And other times, you know, he couldn't find anybody open. He took a ton of sacks today. If it was not for the defense turning the ball over and Jake Elliott's leg under adverse, you know, conditions, we might have had a different outcome to this game. But I tell you what, you know, as I said last week, I don't have any concerns about, you know, this football team and the road that it's on. They figure out a way to win games, and they make plays when they need to make plays. You know, Jalen Carter is an absolute stud. And I'm telling you right now, you know, if they can figure out a way to free him up where he's one-on-one, he's unblockable one-on-one. And when you make a mistake and you leave him unblocked one-on-one, he makes you pay. The most important thing, I don't care what the stats look like, what the numbers look like, the most important thing is that you get the win. And guess what, Philadelphia? You get a chance at an NFC conference title next week right here at the link for an opportunity to head down to Louisiana for Super Bowl 59. How apropos. 59. Let's go get it.
I wonder why that number's special to you.
I do wonder. Gunner, this, I mean, it might not have been the prettiest thing in the world, but again, the main thing was the main thing. They found a way to win this game, which has not been a repeating theme throughout the season in terms of finding ways to win, but this wasn't a game that the Eagles controlled to start to finish. There was some sweaty moments, if you will, in a snowy game.
If you had a heart condition, if you were on a breathing apparatus, if you were faint of heart, the finish of this game was not for you. But as this team has done time and time again this season, they find a way to get it done. When the offense sputters, the defense picks it up. When the defense is giving up yards, the offense comes up with a big play. There's no question who the player of the game is in this game. It goes back to shades of the LaShawn McCoy game, but that was a regular season game. In this case, all the marbles are on the line. They had a 13-point lead, and they let the Rams walk down the field and like a $140-something, go 70 yards, and you're sitting there going, uh-oh. I got people on social media when Saquon took off on that touchdown run, and I said game, set, match, people, you spoke too soon. And then when the Rams go down and figure the touchdown, if they lose, it's your fault. Yeah, like I control the players and how they play this game and the coaches and the calls and the situations in a snow game like this where ball security is everything. But the bottom line is,
I'm sorry, did they not go on a run when you regrew your mustache?
Thank you.
I think you have some control.
And now I'm letting the goatee come back in.
Oh, that's Super Bowl bound now.
Oh yeah, so I got the goatee going now also. So, you know, but this team never ceases to amaze you in terms of how they get it done. It's not always pretty. It's not always perfect. My big concern, I have one concern right now is, and we're going to wait and see what happens in the days to come, what's the situation with Jalen's knee? Because obviously, especially when he took that sack in the end zone for a safety, you could tell something's not right there. He got through this game, and I would imagine they're going to do, you know, with modern technology and modern medicine being what it is, I don't think there's any way you keep him off the field for the next game. You'd have to tie him down as you would with most players who have little nicks and aches and stuff like that. But this was phenomenal on their part to get this win.
Oh, absolutely.
Jalen Carter with that sack may have saved their season, basically. That sack was huge. We talk about Saquon being the player of the game, but that Jalen Carter sack was huge coming up near the end of the game, which pushed the Rams back just a little bit and made that last fourth down play that much longer. End result, game, set, match.
All right, let's get to it here. All right, now let's make it officially official. The player to bank on in today's game for the Philadelphia Eagles. We batted around some defensive names. We batted around Jalen Carter. Of course, you just heard a mention there by Derek Gunn. We also talked about Jake Elliott. He was money from the field, not so much on the point afters, unfortunately missing two. But when push came to shove, the guy to talk about for the player of the game, brought to you by Mid-Penn Bank, is, of course, Saquon Barkley. When the Eagles needed to call his number and get something done, they did it. And he performed and answered the door when opportunity knocked. 26 carries, 205 yards, just under 8 yards per attempt, 2 rushing touchdowns, and they couldn't have come really at a better time. The first one coming in the first quarter there ran for 62 yards to make it a 13-7 Eagles victory. And then when they needed a near knockout punch to put him in a little comfortable lead there, make it 28-15. He rattled off a 78-yard rushing touchdown for the Eagles. We think about great acquisitions in the offseason throughout Philadelphia sports history. Seth, you'd be hard-pressed to figure out somebody that'd be better than Saquon Barkley, especially if this ends with a parade down Broad Street.
Listen, man, he has been the difference. And listen, I would venture to say that if they hadn't have picked up Saquon, that the offense would look markedly different. The construct, the scheme, everything about the offense would look so much different. But the fact that you have this guy and what he can do with this offensive line, they just lean on you and they lean on you and they lean on you and they catch you in situations. And once he gets it to the second level, the safety takes a bad angle, and you just know that the last line of defense, that nobody's going to get to him and make the tackle. Right now, as it stands, he might be the greatest free agent signing in Philadelphia Eagle history for what he's doing for this team and where this team is headed at this time. He's got to be right there. But, I mean, the guy's just absolutely phenomenal. Everything he does to help this team win. And the fact that, they're able to run the ball the way that they're able to run the ball, and the defense can make plays when it needs to make plays, and the defense can be stout when it needs to be stout. That's complementary football to me. Now, in my opinion, if they're going to go all the way, they're going to have to figure out a way to get a little more dynamic in their pass game. It looks too vanilla. And there are times, AJ had the 2 drops today. He short-armed one, the safety flashed, and he T-Rexed one. And then the one on the sideline, he never drops balls like that. I don't think he's 100% healthy either, the way that he's playing. But they've just got to figure out a way to be a little more dynamic in the pass game and to be consistent with it. Yeah, teams are going to make adjustments. When you get to this point, especially when you get down to the last 4 after this game tonight, you get down to the last 4, you're talking about the best coordinators on both sides of the ball for the best 4 teams that are left in the playoffs, and they're going to make some adjustments. But you've got to be able to make some adjustments too. When I watch our offense, when we're trying to throw the football, we seem like a lot of time in zone coverages that our routes are set, and we're running our routes to the defender instead of, like when you look at a Travis Kelce, when he realizes that a team is in zone, he knows it. Patrick Mahomes knows it. If he's running the route inside and the guy's set up inside, he cuts his route outside. He works away from the guy, so he's in between the 2 coverage guys, and you can throw the ball, and they can pick up 5 or 6 yards. It seems like we run our routes are constructed a certain way, and it's almost like everybody knows, okay, this is where they're running our routes. So we're just going to drop to an area and let them run to us instead of us working away. I want to see some option routes where guys, even though you're inside, give Jalen, he sees you inside. He sees the defender inside. That's why he's not throwing it to guys. But work away from the guy so that at least we can complete some balls underneath. And we did it early in the game. We did it early in the game, but as the game went on, we became less and less confident with trying to throw the ball in the middle of the field against zone coverage, and they ran a lot of zone. The offensive line, they struggle with games today. I've never seen that before, but they really struggle with games today. I don't know how many sacks did they have on a day?
They had 7 a day.
7 sacks. Yep. And I know a lot of people will look at it and say, hey, Jalen needs to get rid of the ball. There are some instances where he probably could have thrown the ball away. There are some instances where it's just not feasible for him to throw it away. He can't get rid of it. And now, to D. Gunn's point, with the question about his knee and his mobility and his ability to get away from, make that guy one miss, that becomes a concern. So, even though they're going into, the NFC Championship next week, you got, the Washington Commanders coming in. They got some work to do this week from a game plan perspective on how they're going to try to attack this offense, because it seems to me it's going to be a high-scoring affair, and we're going to have to put the ball in the air, and we're going to have to make some yards passing the ball. We're not going to be able to just line up and run at this Washington defense next week.
Yeah, one of the plays in particular, with Jalen Hurts, and I really like Jalen Hurts, never been a hater of him, but when it comes to the safety situation that he had against this defense, he had Devontae Smith that looked like wide open in the middle of the field. If not to get him to football, at least avoid the safety and be able to at least put it at his feet to try to avoid that sack.
I think sometimes, you got to realize things are happening so fast. The minute that a guy flashes in front of you like that, your vision goes off the guy in the middle of the field where maybe you don't see him anymore, or your vision is inhibited. And he realized, well, I'm not going to make a bad situation even worse, because if I try to get away and they slap the ball and knock it out of my hands, it's 7 points instead of 2. So sometimes the most prudent play is to just maybe take the sack, realizing that, let's wait for our defense to do something special, and when we get the ball back again, maybe we can make something happen. Sometimes you just have to not make a bad situation even worse. I get it. I would love to see them go to a quick game offense where they drop back and Jalen 3-step and let it go. Get it out of your hands. I don't care if we get 3 yards on first down. Get something. Or get 3 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards. But this explosive mentality, I think in more situations than not, puts Jalen in a critical situation. There are times today where I'm looking and we're in zone, okay? They motion Saquon out of the backfield. He's out in the flat, okay? And everybody's running routes down the field. Now they get pressure, and Jalen doesn't have anywhere to go with the ball because there's no one sitting down in the middle of the field. All the routes are vertical and up the field. There's a time to run all goes or all verticals. I realize that. But you always have to give your quarterback an out. He always has to have somewhere where he is confident enough that when everything breaks down, 1001, 1002, okay, let me dump it off. And he did it a couple of times early in the game. But when you don't give him that outlet, it's not built into your offense, it becomes more and more difficult for him to make the right decisions. And we expect for him to continue to make right decisions, but it's hard to do if a team is getting pressure and he's under the gun and you don't have an outlet for him because all of your routes are up the field, especially when Saquon has to stay in or Dallas Goedert has to stay in on the other side. They're showing pressure. We've got to start running some routes that break across the middle of the field, running away from defenders, and give Jalen something to throw to instead of trying to push the ball down the field all the time.
See, I would have rather seen on the safety, I would have rather seen Jalen throw the ball away. Those 2 points could have been huge in terms of that last drive for the Rams, meaning absolutely nothing.
I get your point, D-Gun.
He's played enough football. I get better than that.
I get your point. But the guy was on him.
I get it.
Right now. And if you don't get the ball back to the line of scrimmage or they deem it to be grounded, it's a safety anyway.
I get that. But he had enough time to see the guy coming right at him because he ducked. So he could have thrown the ball away.
I'm trying to tell you, man, it's easy for us to say that.
It is.
The game happens so fast.
Absolutely.
So fast. He might have been looking at his primary, and all of a sudden, boom, he's got a guy in his face. So it's easy to say, oh, just throw it away. But when it's happening that fast.
I get it.
Sometimes, you don't process it that way.
How many times do we see quarterbacks still throw the ball at the feet of a potential receiver? That's all he's got to do.
I get it.
Just get it near the feet of a potential receiver, and that's an incomplete pass.
You got to get it back to the line of scrimmage.
I get that.
You got to be throwing it at someone.
From our green room, it looked extremely easy. You just get it right there.
Yeah,
almost too easy.
We can sit here and play lounge chair quarterback, but I've seen it happen too many times. They were at the 4-yard line. He didn't have to throw the ball that far for it to be an incomplete pass.
I'm with you on that.
People in the chat seem to agree with you. Okay, I get it. I get it. You know. But what I would love to do with people sometimes is put you in that position so you can see how fast the game actually happens. So it's easy to sit back. It's easy for people to sit back and look at the circumstances and say what he should have did. But until you're in that situation and you feel that pressure and you understand what's coming at you and it's coming at you so fast that you're trying to process it, it's real easy for other people to say what you should have done.
See, I hate to say this because I don't want to be put in that box like a hater. I think it's the indecisiveness of Jalen. Now, we understand.
It might be.
Now, we understand the knee is the issue. We all agree on that.
That was way before the knee, though.
No, I understand what I'm saying. We understand, but I'm saying that was the indecisiveness of Jalen that we've been screaming about for the past several weeks. Even though he's not turning the football over, but there are times when his decision-making process, especially when he's looking downfield and he throws the ball deep instead of hitting the guy. Occasionally, there is, we talk about them not having enough crossing routes and curls over the middle and receivers just stopping at a spot at a hole in the middle of a defense and him missing them. But there's also that indecisive element of him that keeps driving us nuts. And again, it's easy for us to sit here and critique it, but that's the basic elements of football.
I get it 100%. I get it 100%. When I tell you what, classic case in point, when on that last drive, when Stafford got sacked, it's a similar situation, man. It's what I'm trying to get you guys to understand. That guy is not there 1 minute, and the next minute he's right there on you.
Yep.
You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
That's all I'm trying to do. I'm not – listen, my wife is over here telling me I give Jalen a whole bunch of grace, okay? People in the chat are killing me. Oh, you give Jalen all this grace. What I'm trying to do is I'm not trying to make excuses for him. I'm not trying to give him too much grace. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get you guys to understand what it's like to be in that situation in the moment, because it happens so fast that it's almost a shock to your system. It's like you're standing back there and you're looking, and it's like, oh, damn, he's right there on me. So your reaction time is literally zero. And what you're trying to do is not make the critical mistake of trying to raise the ball up and get it knocked out of your hand, or put your arm up and throw the ball and and you get a fumble. You turn it into 7 instead of 2. So I'm telling you, it happens to all quarterbacks. This is not just a Jalen problem. I would love to see him play better. I would love to see the offensive staff and Kellen Moore scheme better for the passing game. Okay, I would love to see them call better plays. You run the ball down on the goal line on first down, you get 3 yards. Okay, why are you dropping your quarterback back in a pure drop back? That pass should be a 3-step drop out of your hands right now. A slant to AJ, a quick out, or a stop route. So now you don't have to worry about somebody breaking through. You understand what I'm saying? You don't want your quarterback standing in the end zone, patting the ball, trying to wait for somebody to come open. You have to go to the quick game. So now your offensive coordinator, the play caller, is the one that should be putting you in position to succeed, instead of putting you in a position where you're trying to hit a shot down the field and you're standing in your own damn end zone.
Okay, we've seen Jalen also. Now, I'm not talking about just this one play, but in general over the last, let's say, 5-6 games. We've seen him where he's thrown the ball away to avoid taking a sack and losing yards. We've also seen him hold the ball too long at times. My concern is he's trying to be too fine with the football. He's so overly concerned about turning the football over. He's trying to be too fine with the football. And the end result is, a lot of cases, it's costing them plays and costing them yards. I think sometimes from a quarterback's perspective, you got to have that, you know what, I just got to let it go mentality. You look at some of the look at a guy like a Josh Allen or you look at Lamar Jackson. Now, sometimes I just got to let it go mentality.
Let me tell you something.
See,
when you're talking about trauma with this whole turnover thing with Jalen, because he took a lot of hell over the last couple of weeks of the season last year and the first couple of weeks of the season. Oh, he's a turnover machine. He's a turnover machine. So now he's in protective mode, where over the last so many games, I mean, what is it, nine games? He hadn't thrown an interception in 9 games?
Right.
So if that's his mentality, he's going to remain that way because of the trauma of all the heat that he took. So now, okay, I'm turning it over because I'm letting it go.
Okay, but it's a coaching staff job to bring him out of that.
I get it. And that's why I said after week 4, the best thing that they can do is what they're doing now. Make Jalen a game manager and bring him back slowly but surely. Up it slowly but surely. But I don't think the scheme is conducive for him just letting it go sometimes.
Then that's on coaching then. That's on coaching. Because the coaching you got an offensive coordinator who's supposed to be well-versed in this stuff, and you have a head coach who's an offensive-minded head coach. So between the two of them, they should be able to bring him back to where he needs to be.
Listen, I agree.
Being overly cautious with the football.
I agree 100%. I'm watching these other quarterbacks get the ball out of their hand on time and on rhythm, and I'm asking myself, how come our offense doesn't look like that at times? You can't tell me that those things aren't in the playbook. Why don't we have cover 2 beaters, cover 3 beaters, cover 4 beaters, cover 7 beaters, cover 6 beaters? Why don't we have those kinds of routes where Jalen gets back, he deciphers what coverage they're in, checks at the line to the route that beats that damn coverage?
Yeah.
Everybody else has got it.
I agree.
But we ask our quarterback to stand back there no matter what the coverage is and wait for somebody to win a one-on-one battle. That's not good football.
All right, let me ask both of you this real quick. I want to ask both of you a question.
Go ahead.
And I'm not going to answer. I'm just going to sit back. Do you think this team wins in spite of Jalen?
No, I do not think that. I've never thought that. And I think too highly.
I'm just asking. I don't have an. I'm just asking.
I think too. Like I will say that the star of the show for the Eagles is the defense, and Saquon Barkley, and then the defense. But a lot of that is under the allowance, I guess, of Jalen Hurts. Like he'll take that back seat if he has the most potent weapon in the NFL, which is Saquon Barkley running behind this offensive line.
Listen, Saquon Barkley is the straw that stirs the drink. There's no doubt about it. But you can't. Listen. If they felt like they could give the ball to Saquon 40 times a game and win that way, in order to get to the Super Bowl, they would do that. So when people say, oh, we're winning despite him, well, wait a minute. You know, he ran off for a 44-yard touchdown today. Wasn't that – I mean, if he doesn't score that touchdown, we don't win the game, right?
Yeah.
Last week he threw 2 touchdowns last week, right?
Right.
Okay,
right.
So if he doesn't throw those 2 touchdowns, we lose the game 8-10, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I understand, and we're answering the question that Derek just asked. But to me, today wasn't about Jalen's struggles. Today was more so about the defense overcoming, the defense being clutch, and Saquon Barkley doing what he's done all season long. Speaking of the defense, when we come back, we're going to talk about another Jalen, and that guy's name is Jalen Carter and what he was able to do today. And I also want to remind people, Seth, that we have another giveaway we're doing today. Make sure you wonderful people in the chat are staying in that chat all show long. We have another mini helmet to give away. We have another football to give away, and we're going to be giving that away to somebody in our chat. So stick around. A little bit later, we'll check in on that chat with our friend Bailey Livesey. She'll be stopping by. Also, Dr. Bruce Grosser will be stopping by as well to talk about Jalen Hurts and what did happen with his knee there on the sidelines. We'll look to get what the doctor knows about it. And also, we'll continue to break down this Eagles victory 28-22 over that LA Rams squad. Bring on the Commanders next. We'll be back. Parks Casino, just 20 minutes north of Center City, Philadelphia, in good weather, of course, in Ben Salem.
It's happening again. Those missed tackles are starting to stack up. Your friends pleading with players who can't hear them, sweating it out week after week, but not you. Why? Because whether they score or not, there's always another way to win on the BetParx app. New casino users score up to $1,000 bonus back in their first 24 hours.
Oof, stuck paying for that old phone? Don't be. You know, at Verizon, we'll pay off your phone, and you'll get iPhone 16 with Apple Intelligence on us. Now with Genmoji. That's a value of up to $1,600. Only on Verizon.
Most people don't know how to get the care they need. The experts at Stay at Home Care can help. Before choosing a caregiver or family member for your care, you need to apply for the Home Care Program. The application process can be complicated. Stay at Home Care can help you navigate through every step. Once approved, your caregiver or family member will receive guaranteed weekly pay, a variety of medical benefits options, paid holidays, paid vacation, and overtime pay. Call Stay at Home Care, here to help every step of the way.
This upcoming segment is brought to you by Parks Casino. Welcome back to the Bet Parks post-game show presented by Pond Lee Hockey. Mark Farzetta, Seth Joyner, and Derek Gunn joining you. Before we go any further, we want to break down the two Davis Honda drives of the game, most of them highlighted by some great defensive plays, both of them coming off of fumbles created by this Vic Fangio defense. First and foremost, with the score 16-15, after that unfortunate safety that we talked about there in the opening segment, the Eagles were to come up after Kyron Williams was forced a fumble. Isaiah Rodgers able to scoop that ball up and have a huge return on that. Ended up being just 2 plays, 8 yards, our shortest drive of the season. That was our drive of the game, that coming in the beginning of the fourth quarter, and helped flip the score to give the Eagles the 16-15 lead. Then, wouldn't you know it, the defense would step up again after a field goal by Jake Elliott, 1 of 3 that he made on the day. The Eagles were able to force another fumble and come up with a 6-play, 9-yard drive for our second Davis Honda drive of the game. This one coming at the 11-10 mark of the fourth quarter. After this, it made it a 19-15 Eagles advantage. Matthew Stafford was sacked for a 9-yard loss. That ball was picked up by Zach Vaughn, who had a phenomenal series on that series right there. Came up with a stop of Kyron Williams for -3 yards, a tackle for loss there. Then was able to come up with another tackle for loss, and then was able to scoop that fumble up. That was forced by Nolan Smith, that just got his hand in there in the nick of time on Matthew Stafford to force that fumble. And there he was, Zach Vaughn, Johnny on the spot. You look at this entire season, Seth. I mean, we've watched all these games this year, and we've seen great runs by Saquon Barkley. It's probably been the most consistent thing. But right after that, we're talking about an Eagles defense that is always risen to the occasion. And that's something that Vic Fangio has preached from the start. And Oren Burks even came up big with some plays late in the game. Did not have a great start, but came on strong towards the end. Darius Slay was all over the place in the secondary as well. But really, it came down to Zach Vaughn and Jalen Carter getting pressure and taking advantage of opportunities.
Well, listen, they've been opportunistic, especially over the last six or 7 weeks. How many turnovers they had today? They had the 2 fumbles.
I think that was it, the 2 fumble recovery.
Okay. So you got 2 fumbles. They came in the last week with 14 turnovers in 4 games. So that's 16 turnovers in the last 5 games. That's just winning football.
And Matthew Stafford, by the way, sacked 5 times today. He was sacked 6 times in 4 games combined.
And I can't tell you how many balls we had our hands on that we actually dropped today that should have been an interception. At least 2 or 3. So I mean, they're playing such good football, and they're so grooved for the moment in so many ways on the defensive side of the football. The most disappointing time of the game, though, was right after Saquon's run. We give up a 10-play, 70-yard drive, and we just let them just walk right down the field and just give them 7 points.
A minute 48.
A minute and 48 seconds. Just boom, boom, boom. And then, we go 3 and out, and now we're in a dogfight. So now we get up and we start playing tight coverage. They're knocking down balls, challenging wide receivers. Why not keep playing like that? Why not keep playing like that in the moment? I mean, you're up in the game. They were up, 28 to 15?
Yeah.
It's like if you still got 5-6 minutes left in the game's not over. Because if they march down the field the way that they did and the offense goes 3 and out the way that they did, now you're in a dogfight. Why do we even have to be that way? Just get up and keep playing the game the way that you've been playing it. I hate when coaches unless you got a 3-4, touchdown lead and there's 3 minutes left in the game, then I can understand playing a little more passive. But this passive nonsense, I mean, you're up by 2 scores and you're playing off. I look up and the safeties and the corners are playing at the same depth. They're all 10 yards off the ball. Well, guess what? A quarterback like Matthew Stafford is just going to pick you apart and go down the field. And then all of a sudden, once the pressure's on, now you get up and you want to start playing football. Why not play that way to begin with and not give up the extra 6 points to make 7 points to make it such a game at the end?
Because these coaches preach, keep it in front of you, let them keep the clock moving. Keep the clock moving, take as many seconds, minutes as you can off the clock. You see this all the time in football across the league. I hate prevent defenses because you allow teams to get, as we saw today, you allow teams to get back in the game. And then, like Seth said, all of a sudden they decide they want to play press coverage and put pressure on the quarterback. but you shouldn't have to put yourself in that position. You had a 13-point lead at that point, and you let them think that they had an opportunity to win this game. And luckily, this game kind of reminded me of that championship game when they played Atlanta. They let Atlanta walk down the field, and all of a sudden, divisional round, Julio Jones goes up in the end zone after he had slipped, almost pulled that pass down over Jalen Mills.
Green Goblin.
Yeah, the Green Goblin made you hold your breath for a moment. It had shades of that kind of game when you didn't have to put yourself in that kind of position.
Mm-hmm. Now, and what was really wild about it was you talk about a minute and 48 seconds, 10 plays in a minute 48 seconds. They go down, they score that touchdown. Eagles get the ball back, go 3 plays, -3 yards because they got the sack on that. 25-second drive or possession, I should say, because you can't call that a drive. And then another 10 plays, 60 yards in a minute 57 that ended with Jalen Carter, one of the Jalen Carter plays that he made where he ended up getting that sack for -9 yards there.
Just to go back
loss of 9.
Just to go back to your point on that 3 and out, okay? The Eagles had previously run those half boots. They ran it both sides today, okay? So the question is, how many times you think you can go to the well before the other team makes the adjustment?
Mm-hmm.
So they rip off 3 yards, on the first play. Then they go boot, and Jalen takes the sack for a huge loss. And now you got to turn the ball back over. It's like when I'm talking about the play calling, the timeliness of what you call and how you call it. So you've gone to that well how many times? How many times do you think the defense is going to allow you to do the same thing over and over? It's almost like that guy was waiting for that play to happen. He stepped down inside, and then he jetted right outside on Jalen. And Jalen, being in the condition that he was in, just laid down and gave himself up. Another one of those situations, D-Gun, to your point, you're already out of the pocket. Throw the damn ball away.
Get rid of that damn ball, man.
Just throw it away. You throw it away, we got 3rd and 7, not 3rd and 17, and you have to run the ball and give it back to him. Now, at least on 3rd and 7, you got a chance to convert.
Right.
Jalen Carter, gentlemen. We talked about him a little bit before the break, but Jalen Carter comes out today, gets 2 tackles for loss. Huge sack towards the end of this game when the Eagles needed to make sure that they started pushing the L.A. Rams back. I mean, we know how good he is. We talked about maybe not winning every battle, but certainly being in control of every battle. They gave him one-on-one coverage 1 or 2 times in this game, and one of them resulted in a sack in the early goings. Seth, let me ask this question. When you talk about Jalen Carter now in the playoffs performing at this level, how good is he? What is a piping hot take? What is a dead-on accurate take when it comes to Jalen Carter?
I think the fact that, he was recognized by the rest of the league and recognized. Was he a first team or second team All-Pro? I believe he was first team.
I think it was first team.
I mean, in your second year.
Second team, sorry. Yeah.
In your second year, I mean, that's just unheard of. And he's only going to get better. And I'm telling you right now, when Vic Fangio can get to a place where he can start scheming this guy to where he gets the one-on-ones. Like, when they go there, this is what I would do. When they go to their 6-man or their 5-man front, I would move Jalen Carter to the nose and put the other tackles on the outside so he's one-on-one against we used to do that in our 46 defense with Reggie White. So Reggie is a natural defensive end, but when we used to go to our 46 defense, if a tackle couldn't handle him, you think the center was going to be able to handle him one-on-one? Mm-hmm. So you got Jerome and Mike Pitts on the outside shoulder of the guards, okay? And you got Reggie one-on-one on the center. And neither one can help because if they step down, boom, they're in the backfield right now. Mm-hmm. So when you go to your 5-man line and you line up across the board in your Eagle look, I would move Jalen Carter to the nose guard spot so that at least he can dominate from there, cut the field in half on run plays, and dominate the center, getting on the quarterback right now. But they've got to figure out ways, because I saw so many times when Matthew Stafford was having success, where every single time they just turn and they double him. They double him. Listen, I'm impressed. And it's hard as hell to impress me. I'm impressed by Jalen Carter that you can lay 600 pounds on him all day long and then get in the fourth quarter and he's still got enough gas to go and make big plays. Big plays. Game-changing plays. That sack was huge. The Carr's fumble was huge. Most players, when they get laid on like that all day long, they get complacent. They get lazy. Before a second-year guy to continue to have his motor under the circumstances, when you're being laid on and double team and triple team, he just kept coming and kept coming and kept coming. And you know it's high praise. But I haven't seen a guy play with that kind of energy since the late Jerome Brown.
I would consider not just putting Jalen at the nose tackle, but think about how many stunts you can run with him from that nose tackle position as well.
I'd like to see the Eagles defensive line run a lot more stunts, period.
Yeah, especially because what they did in that fourth quarter today. We
talked about it in the pregame show, okay, as far as the Rams were concerned. What did I say? I said that the Rams lined up and tried to rush and play our offensive line straight up the first game. And we dominated them in every fashion. A.J. Brown had 100 yards receiving. Saquon Barkley rushed for 255 yards. We dominated them. So to think that they were going to come in, when you have small guys going against big guys, you can't just leave them there. You got to slant them. You got to loop them. You got to stun them. You got to do a myriad of different things, because if you leave them right there and I can just lay on them and I got 50 pounds on the guy, I'm going to win that battle all day long. So the Eagles need to figure out how to implement some stunts, some TE stunts, some TNT stunts, some ET and some TE stunts, some different things, some loops to get Jalen Carter free. He is too good to line up in a 3 technique and you allow the opposing team to double him all game. He's too good for that.
Just in case anyone's thinking of the play with the Jomo sack, which is technically, I guess, an ET, but you thought that was maybe by accident.
Well, it was delayed. I don't think it was called.
Okay.
It was a little bit by accident. But what happened is when Jalen Carter's rushing, I mean, he's like a bat out of hell. He's just trying to get there any way that he can. And when your 2 tackles are rushing, they have to stay balanced as they attack the quarterback, so the quarterback don't have to step through. If they both get on the same side, here's the step through. The quarterback's just going to step between the defensive end and both the tackles. So you try to balance them up. But what happened was Jalen Carter was fighting like hell to get through, and he wound up on Ojomo's side. And Ojomo was smart enough to just loop around him. And when he looped around him, boom, sack. See, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't necessarily have to be, just right out the gate, a TNT. That's the 2 tackles crossing. It could be delayed, where you're pushing, and at the last minute, boom, I just loop around. But you got to communicate it, and it's got to be coached, and you got to work on it.
And you also have to have some good coverage, too, because that's going to take an extra second for the guys to get around. When we come back, we're going to take a look at what everyone's saying is in the chat right now, what everyone's saying in the chat right now. Bailey Livesey's going to stop by and let us know, a social media coordinator. She's been looking at the chat, reading your comments, and seeing what you guys want to talk about. We'll talk about that when we return on the Bet Parks postgame show presented by Pondley Hockey. The Bet Parks Sportsbook here at Parks Casino. Fine leather loungers. All the games going on where you could win yourself some cash.
At Pondley Hockey Giordano, we understand the impact an injury can have on your life. Our experienced attorneys have recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we know we can do the same for you. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured at work, give Pondley Hockey a call.
Since 1893, Weber Display and Packaging has been Pennsylvania's leading manufacturer of corrugated packaging and displays. We're family-owned with 4 Philadelphia locations, 2 converting facilities, a warehouse, and a fulfillment center. Designed through delivery, we exceed customer needs. Weber Display and Packaging. Our core values drive everything we do. Come join our team.
This is Parks.
This is how you roll. This is how it goes. This is how you pop. This is how you rock. Take a chance, do a dance, little romance. This is how you. This is how you excite. This is how you all night. 360 hit me. Now we're going all in. I can feel it calling. The crowd, the light, the night, the sights, the vibe is right. This is how you. This is
Parks, Pennsylvania's #1 casino experience. This is how you win. At Revolution X, we know that fortunes are made in times of uncertainty. Are you selling your investment real estate? Are you interested in deferring your tax with a 1031 exchange? At RevX, we're experts in 1031 exchange planning and the use of passive real estate options using DSTs. Not in the midst of an exchange and want to invest in real estate but don't know where to start? Revolution X has institutional grade real estate options for any size investor right now. Set up a consultation at RevXWealth.com. RevX, defer the tax, maximize the gain.
This upcoming segment is brought to you by Ponley Hockey. The road to the Super Bowl goes through Philadelphia. The Washington Commanders will be coming here next weekend to take on their NFC East rival, our Philadelphia Eagles, in the NFC Championship game for a third matchup this season. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Standing by to let us know what everyone's been talking about in the chat, our own Bailey Livesey, our social media coordinator. Bailey, how are you? Welcome in. What are the good people talking about?
Well, thank you, Mark. I am doing good. And, I'm doing good now that that game is over. That was so nerve-wracking. But that's another Eagles win for the Eagles. And let's get into these questions. So, for our first one, we saw our kicker's performance today. Can you give us your thoughts on Jake Elliott and the drops made by A.J. Brown?
The drops for A.J. Brown, certainly a concern in the early goings of the game. I know we were making the jokes in the green room about maybe a little bit more inner excellence when it comes to making those catches, but no question about it. I know there were 3 defensive backs around him during the first drop. Bottom line is you got to step up and make that play for the Eagles. You got to make sure, especially on that particular play, you get the first down. Eagles ended up, I believe, punting, I think it was, after that first drop. And then the second one was weird. He didn't actually drop it. He didn't corral it until he was out of bounds, unfortunately. But, again, that's a guy that you depend on, especially in the passing game, especially if it's working in a slow manner. You want to make sure A.J. Brown gets it going. He wasn't there when the Eagles needed him.
Hey, listen, I agree. I mean, it started with the slant route. Jalen threw the perfect ball in the window of the zone, and A.J., kind of T-Rexed it. We call it T-Rex when, you don't fully extend. The hit is coming. Normally, A.J.'s not afraid of, that kind of contact. He's such a big guy, at 6'2", 6'3", 220 pounds, that he'll go in there. He's not afraid of that contact. But some of those, some of those catches, some of those balls, they're critical because if he catches that ball, they got a first down. The next, they wind up having to punt that series. And I believe that the Rams scored on that next series because of the punt. Then the one he dropped, the deep ball that would pretty much given the Eagles, first and goal. You just never see him. He's usually short-handed. He's a hands catcher to begin with. And the ball, it looked like he tried to catch the ball against his body instead of actually catching it with his hands. Everybody complains about, we got to get A.J. Brown involved. We got to get A.J. the ball, today was one of those days. I love the guy, but today was one of those days where, in a game of this magnitude, those 2 catches, you have to go and make those catches.
There was one play. Oh, go ahead, Gunnar.
Yeah, I don't want to make too much of it right now, but I wonder how much the knee is actually affecting him. He says he's fine, but players will say that all the time. But to me, I don't think he's running the routes as crisp as he has been. And I think there's something a little bit more to this knee issue than he's letting on. Now, he's out there. He's a gamer. I give him all the respect in the world. I got a lot of love for A.J., but something just doesn't feel right with him right now. And obviously, from a player's perspective, you're not going to give up that information because obviously opponents will try to use that against you. But I just think he's less than 100%, as is the case with most players that are this deep into a season. I just think we have to keep watching this because what does he have now, 2 catches in the last 2 games? 3 catches in the last 2 games?
Yeah.
See, and that's not him. And that's Jalen's favorite go-to guy, but he's not going to him for a reason. There's a reason behind the curtain why what we think should be is not happening right now.
Well, listen, he targeted him on 2 slants. One he caught on a 4th down, right. Critical 4th down conversion, and then, the deep ball down the sideline. Well, actually more targets than that. That ball that he dropped, probably about 5 or 6 targets in the game. And I think he had 2 catches. But, you're right.
So, I'm sorry. He had 7 targets, 2 catches for 14 yards. Last game, 1 catch for 10 yards.
Yeah, and then there's some, like anything else, because I got some clowns in the chat. Oh, if Jalen's hurt, we need to sit him down and,
Man, I'm just saying.
then the question starts to get floated. If AJ's not 100%, you're not getting your best out of your best out of him. What does that look like? What do you do?
Well, I'll just say this. On the 4th and 4, I believe it was, on the pass to A.J. Brown, we were all saying, punt it, bury him. They're not going to be able to drive. Fortunately, they didn't do that. They went for it. And Nick Sirianni showed some guts. Some people might not call it guts, but A.J. Brown stepped up in that situation and made a big catch when he needed to, obviously. Bailey, what else do you have for us?
Well, that game was for sure a nail-biter. Were you guys getting worried as the clock was winding down?
Yes.
Worried?
Oh, me?
That's an understatement.
No. I knew they had the game.
Man, stop it. That's an understatement. My thing, the thing that, listen, you guys heard me say, there's nothing more important than the win, because at this time of the year, it's win or go home. Matthew Stafford and the Rams, they're going home. They got their, they can start making their offseason plans, going on vacation, so on and so forth. No matter how ugly it was, or how ugly we think it was, or how ugly the weather made it, the Eagles are on to next week. They have the chance to win the NFC Championship and go to the Super Bowl. To me, that's all that matters, But we're in the business of discussing, how it looked, how it turned out, and trying to project what it's going to look like, in the upcoming weeks.
I will say this. When Puka Nacua made that big catch on the sidelines, I'm thinking, here we go. This is not going to turn out good. And then Cooper Kupp comes back, and it was only a 3-yard catch, but he makes this shoe top catch and slides out of bounds and stop the clock the other way. And I'm thinking, this is not going to end up right. And the people in Philadelphia are going to be besides themselves all week longer. But luckily, things worked out in Eagles' favor in this game.
I mean, anybody to say that they weren't a little bit agitated, listen, they had just gone 10 plays, 70 yards in a minute and 48. Yeah, and scored a touchdown. To say that you weren't a little bit, I'm like, this is not happening at Lincoln Financial Field.
Exactly.
They are not losing this damn game today for the chance to go to the NFC Championship. They're not about to do this. I was like sweating.
I had said to Gunner right before the Eagles got the ball, before Saquon's 70-plus yard touchdown run, and I said, I feel like Saquon's, I said across the table from him, I said, I feel like Saquon's got one more big run in him. He got that big run, and then a minute 48 later, they went down and scored another touchdown. I thought, ugh. And I thought, they're moving the ball so well. Is it just not snowing when the Rams have the ball? What's going on here? And then, of course, Jalen Carter happened and helped stall that last drive there by the Rams.
Well, especially when you have a quarterback like a Matthew Stafford who's been in big games like this before and has made a lot of big throws in games like this, even in inclement conditions. Before the game, we looked at his stats in games where there's inclement weather, snow, sleet, rain, 1-8, 14 touchdown passes, 11 INTs, QB rating of 76, and a completion percentage of under 57%. And all those things that they were thinking, this is going to be the one time he goes against that grain. Not now, not here, not on this particular day, especially after this team had a comfortable 13-point lead in the fourth quarter.
Bailey, what else do you have for us?
Okay, and lastly, what are a few top priorities we need to address this week going into the NFC Championships?
Oh, please let me start with that one. I mean, listen, their passing game scheme has got to get better. It has to. There's no way. I mean, I'm sure you got the numbers in front of you. How many passes did Devontae Smith, or how many targets did he get today?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I just saw it a minute ago here. I just had it up.
See, in my opinion.
4.
Devontae had 4 targets, 4 catches for 21 yards. So your two big money receivers had 21 yards and 14 yards receiving today.
I mean, these guys, both he and AJ, are too good for them not to scheme ways to get them open. They're just too good. It's funny because they did run a bubble screen today with Devontae Smith getting the ball and Dallas Goedert and AJ Brown blocking instead of having skinny Batman out there blocking. So, that was a welcome sight. He's so unused to running it, he broke outside where he really should have just ran in between, the two blockers. But listen, they've got to figure out a way to be more dynamic in the pass game from a route standpoint that gives Jalen a chance to get the ball out of his hand in better time and better rhythm. You know, even though you're in the shotgun, you still should be able to run 3, 5, and 7-step drops, you know, from the shotgun. That means just timing routes. You get the ball 1, 2, 3, boom, the ball is out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, boom, the ball is out. Deeper routes, maybe it's more of, you know, it's a longer count. And then on the defensive side of the ball, figuring out a way, you know, to be more dynamic in the pass rush by implementing more pass rush games to get some of your pass rushes free. You know, Nolan Smith had, you know, a great rush, caused sack, caused fumble, you know, but other than that, you know, the two other sacks came from, you know, from Jalen Carter in the middle. You know, Josh Sweat the last 2 weeks has pretty much disappeared. So when you're not getting pressure, that means you got to figure out ways to create it. And you can either create it by blitzing, and we're not dynamic with what we do blitzing. We just go a 5-man blitz. We don't get up showing blitz on one side and then drop out and blitz from the other side, screwing with pass coverage. You know, what we do is pretty much defined. You can look at it and tell who's going to come in every situation. We did see some double-A looks today, but we didn't bring both of the linebackers. We only brought one. You know, the pass rush has got to be better, especially against, you know, Jaden Daniels next week. You want to keep him in the pocket, so your two outside guys are going to have to contain him. But you also got to get some push in the middle because he knows where he wants to go with the ball and who he wants to get the ball to, and you got to speed up his clock without allowing him to escape.
All right. Well, I do agree that the passing game needs to get going, especially looking the other side of the football field. And I know that the LA Rams were behind, obviously, in the second half, but still 324 yards for one quarterback, 124, I think it was, for Jalen Hurts today. That's quite the disparity. And it's discrepancy, even though you had 100 more yards by your running back.
I agree. But, you know, look at the sack yards that he lost. That took a significant amount off of his passing yards. And look at the balls that were dropped, the opportunities that would have created, that probably would have pushed him well over 200 yards to 250 yards if those balls that are normally caught are caught. And he's not in a situation where, you know, he has to take those sacks.
All right. Bailey, thank you so much. Appreciate you monitoring the chat and let us know what the good people are talking about.
Of course. Thank you.
Bailey Livesey, our social media coordinator, is how you say that. Thanks so much. Before we go to break, gentlemen, let me ask you this one question. When you do talk about the passing game with the Eagles offense, and this isn't as an excuse, more so as an explanation and hopefully a search for understanding. When it comes to the weather affecting the Eagles pass game today, how much do you think that factored in?
Didn't affect the Rams passing game, did it? So I don't think it affected the Eagles passing game. I think this was just another case of us seeing what we've been watching over the past several weeks or so in terms of the overall passing games. We don't understand the passing concepts and the routes and why they don't have more of a variation. I don't understand why they don't have more crossing routes, more set-down routes over the middle. This is just another case. I'm not going to blame it on the weather. This team racked up, almost 400 yards of offense still. You know, I think it's a case of this being the Kellen Moore offense and the Nick Sirianni offense that they're going to run right now. And I don't see it changing, to be honest with you. To be quite honest with you, because you're going to face a Washington team in the NFC Championship game that cannot stop the run. And so they're going to run the ball down Washington's throat, and they're still going to run all these vertical routes, and there's going to be very few, if any, over-the-middle concept routes in this offense. And whether they win or lose is going to be a significant part of our discussion next week.
Can I ask you guys a question? If you look at our offense over the last 7 games of last year, particularly the passing game, and you look at the passing game primarily most of this year, what do you see?
Not enough slants, not enough screens. I mean, I just see
let me
very
ask this.
stale.
How about unorthodox?
Does it look similar?
Yeah,
Are there any similarities to what we're witnessing in the passing game this year and what we witnessed in the passing game over the last 7 games of last year?
There's not big differences between the two.
No.
If that's the point you're getting at, there's no big difference.
The only difference is the coordinators calling the plays. That's the only difference.
And Jalen's not turning it over. Other than that, it looks eerily the same.
Yes. Even though we have a different coordinator, who, by the way, now I understand why you had to change your offensive philosophy because you have the best running back in the game, and you're going to use that guy all the way to the nth degree. But in terms of your overall passing game, the coordinator who came in this year was known for being a creative pass coordinator in Dallas and with the Chargers. I've not seen that here. Now, understand, maybe his playbook is handcuffed because of what you have in a 2,000-yard rusher. Maybe, just maybe. But when you do throw the football, you can't be as predictable as this offense has been over the past 7-8 games this season.
Deacon, I would venture to say, I agree with you 100%. But I would think that with this passing game, with this running game, I should say, that the passing game should be even that much more dynamic.
Yeah.
Because what should be happening is that you should be coordinating your pass plays off of the run plays that you have success with.
Yes.
So when Saquon's ripping off a play for 62 yards and then he comes back and he rips off another one for 78 yards, what pass play do you have off of that same action where it's play action pass and Jalen stepping back off of the fake and throwing a pass down the field? It doesn't look the same. It's almost like you got a run game over here and we got these formations over here for the pass game. Here comes Devontae Smith in motion away from trips, or here comes Devontae Smith in motion 2 trips. It's the same damn look all the time. It doesn't vary. We're not. And I don't know, because all I can do is like look at the game later on, go to the all 22, and maybe I should start charting formation by formation so I could see. But it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of offensive coordination going on. It looks like there's a run offense and there's a pass offense, and the two don't marry each other.
Yeah, not enough difference from last year to this year, certainly. When we come back, we're going to get a conversation with our friend Dr. Bruce Grossinger. A lot of questions. Comes to Quenyon Mitchell, why he had to leave the game. And, of course, Jalen Hurts. What's to be expected of the Eagles quarterback next week, especially after what looked like a brutal tackle, maybe even a hip drop, you said during the game, Seth. We'll talk about that when we return with our friend Dr. Bruce Grossinger. That's when we return here on the Bet Parks postgame show presented by Pondley Hockey. The Beer Garden here at Parks Casino in Ben Salem. Enjoy the fish and chips, enjoy a brat, and enjoy a stein here at the Beer Garden at Parks Casino.
Oof, stuck paying for that old phone? Don't be. At Verizon, we'll pay off your phone, and you'll get iPhone 16 with Apple Intelligence on us. Now with Genmoji. That's a value of up to $1,600. Only on Verizon.
On game day, it's the Eagles' job to protect this house.
But in here, this is our house.
So we drank our pickle juice, then wrote the playbook on injury law.
And created a winning culture that knows
hungry dogs run faster. And we always bring the pressure, because that's the standard. And we don't win until you win.
Sell your car to us, no hassle, no fuss. DavisBuysCars.com.
Did you know that Davis Honda will pay top dollar for your car? Go to DavisBuysCars.com and get an instant quote on your vehicle. We'll make the purchase as easy as possible and put cash in your hand faster than you can say DavisBuysCars.com.
Sell your car to us, no hassle, no fuss. DavisBuysCars.com.
Gentlemen, are you ready for a wardrobe update? Introducing Divine Nine's Custom Menswear, your clothier for truly unique, custom-made threads. With Divine Nine, you can design your own one-of-a-kind suit, jacket, slacks, shirts, golf pants, and shorts, perfectly handcrafted by our skilled artisans who will bring your vision to life. Prepare to stand out from the crowd with Divine Nine's Custom Clothier, official clothier of Seth Joyner. Custom clothing made for you.
This upcoming segment is brought to you by Verizon. Welcome back to the Bet Parks post-game show presented by Pondley Hockey. We do have our winner that was present in the chat, and we are going to go to Deontay Lewis is the winner of the football and mini helmet. Congratulations, Deontay Lewis. Also a great receiver name, by the way. Deontay Lewis, solid receiver name there. Congratulations, you've won the football and the mini helmet, courtesy of Seth Joyner's show here and the post-game show as well. Make sure you're also following Seth on all social media platforms.
Good thing his last name ain't Johnson.
Right?
That guy can't stay on the roster.
Has he been on like 5 teams in one season? My goodness, and Baltimore just brought him back again.
Did they really?
Yeah, after they put him on his practice squad, yeah. They cut him earlier. He went, where'd he go after that?
Oh, he been on.
And then they cut him, and he's back in Baltimore
He's
now.
been on like 3-4 different teams all season.
Yeah, at least. At least.
Loves to travel, that guy.
Wasn't he a former first-round pick?
Yes.
Good Lord.
All right, speaking of the best rosters you could possibly put together, the Eagles' healthy roster would be what we all prefer. Let's talk to our friend Dr. Bruce Grossinger, of course, to break down all the injuries with the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's start with Quinyon Mitchell first and foremost, because this looks like it's actually going to be okay. We'll get to Jalen Hurts, Doc, but after the game, Quinyon Mitchell was caught up by reporters. I'm seeing Olivia Reiner, Inquirer.com, put it out there that she did talk to Quinyon Mitchell, said he felt fine. When you look at an injury like that, what can you tell us about it and any concern for next week?
Hearing that he feels fine certainly rules out some of the worst things that I was prepared to talk about. That would rule out a clavicular fracture, kind of like Aaron Rodgers had, a humeral fracture, even a separated shoulder with ligament damage. It could be a simple dislocated shoulder where the humerus popped out and they popped it back in. We've seen that so many times. Or it could be just a strain. We saw him in a sling. So he was immobilized immediately. But if he dodged a bullet, maybe it's just a shoulder strain, and he'll get some PT, range of motion, and he'll be back. So that's very encouraging to hear.
You know what, Doc? I think about this all the time because when I look at old film, back when we played, we had these big old mountain of shoulder pads on our shoulders. You know, and as the years have gone on, the shoulder pads have gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. Guys don't like those big shoulder pads. But what today's shoulder pads really don't protect is really the front side of the shoulder. They sit up on top, but if you get hit anywhere down in here, there's really no protection. And that looks like where he really got hit was on the front part of the shoulder, not up on top.
I totally agree with you, Seth. That's the AC joint or the acromioclavicular joint. And that's exactly there, anterior. And you can have AC strains. You see that all the time, and it's a very common injury. And I'm just glad he didn't fracture his shoulder. He's such an important person, and they did pretty well to accommodate. But he's he's an amazing corner, and to have him be out for most of the game was really was detrimental and a little bit harrowing out there.
Doc, if what you're saying is true, then with this type of injury, does it heal itself quickly enough for him to be ready to play another game in 7 days, or does it take a little bit longer than that?
Potentially, it could heal that fast. If he's literally feeling fine right now, has full range of motion, and he's being honest, then that he could just, he obviously has a structurally sound shoulder. The ligaments, the bones, all the mobility, if all of that is intact, he's just going to need some ice, some anti-inflammatories, and some PT. Again, there are people, for instance, if he played for the Philadelphia 76ers, he'd be out for 2 months. But he doesn't. So I think, sorry, a little shot at them.
Doc got jokes today.
Wow. Catching strays. That's all right. Send as many as possible at this point, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. Doctor, I do want to ask you about Jalen Hurts, though. Big concern there. When you see an injury like that, first off, have you heard anything after the game about Jalen? And when you see an injury like that, what flashes through your mind? Or a play like that, I should say. What flashes through your mind?
When I saw the play, Mark, when I saw the play, it looked like he hyperextended his knee. And when Melissa Stark interviewed him after the game, he stated that, I'm sure we're going to get a lot of questions. He goes, I finished the game, didn't I? So that does speak for a lot, structural integrity. This guy is tough as nails. And they put a big brace on him, like a big Donjoy brace, which limits extension. So knowing him, obviously he's not used to wearing that brace. That sack, I think, occurred when he just was unable to move laterally. The knee is a hinge joint, but when you have a heavy brace and it's the snow, I just think it was tough for him to adapt to that in real time, and that's what gave rise to the safety there. But we can only hope that it's just a knee strain, and that's what we'll hope for. He did finish the game, and he's an incredibly stoic guy.
So we got an update on, probably the two most pressing. The other one is, Isaiah Rodgers comes in for Quinyon Mitchell, and then he comes up lame late in the game. And I believe Keely Ringo had to go in for him. Any word on what that injury is? It looked like it might have been a calf tweak to me.
I agree. I think that's a lower extremity injury. The footing was so bad there. I think that, number one, even in cold weather, you could cramp. But I'm sure you've had numerous calf pulls. It could be just a calf pull, and there's so many muscle fibers in the gastroc and soleus that usually comes back pretty quickly. So I would hope it's just a strain. And I think you're actually correct with your hypothesis.
Last thing, unless you got something else, Mark, it didn't seem to bother him much as the game went on, but Saquon Barkley's hand, any word on that? Looks like he just took a face mask or a helmet to the hand on that third down conversion.
I don't have any diagnosis. I'm sure that the x-rays were negative. They taped up his hand. He seemed like he was able to grip the ball fine. I don't recall them actually throwing the ball to him where he had to catch the ball, but I would, I'd infer it's a hand strain, and he was able to obviously run, over 200 yards. There were shades of Shady McCoy in the snow. That was deja vu. Those two long touchdowns, and again, he's just an incredible player. And just when they need it, he comes through it. And I've just never seen anything quite like that.
Yeah, this is the last one I have. Doctor, when it comes to what happens after a game like this, where you're out there in the elements, for 4 quarters, and of course in the second half as well, it's snowing like crazy, blizzard-like conditions. Is there any recommendation, or is there anything that goes on in the locker room with those players in terms of stepping away from a game like this, like any post-game type of treatment or anything like that going from extreme conditions like this?
Well, not only was it was cold, windy, and snowy. I believe there's going to be a lot of whirlpools, a lot of warming up the core, probably some anti-inflammatories. And I think tomorrow will be because of all the eccentric motions that all these players had to go through in that snow, and so many were slipping down. I think tomorrow is going to be a day of rest and rehab, more so than most, and maybe even Tuesday. So I'd say warm the core, anti-inflammatories, PT, a lot of whirlpool over the next 2 days.
Fantastic. Dr. Bruce Grossinger, we appreciate you stopping by as per usual. Hey, we look forward to talking to you next week after what will hopefully be an NFC championship win for the Philadelphia Eagles. Thanks, Doc.
That would be incredible. That's I'm sure going to be there, and it's been a great ride, and I'm hoping everybody can heal up for next week, because certainly Washington looks like a very dangerous team with their quarterback. He can score at will, and I think that they're going to have a better passing offense to stay with that team.
Yeah, and if they do anything next week that would hurt the Eagles, maybe you have a psychiatrist friend who could sit in with you during this segment.
Of course. I'll just refer to Seth. He's very good at that.
There you go. Dr. Bruce Grossinger, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, let's talk about those Commanders for a second here. I mean, they went out there, and we talk about creative offenses. They were very creative. You talk about the Lions. They were extremely creative in that matchup just yesterday in the Motor City. And then you look at this Eagles offense, and to your point before we talk to the doctor, Seth, very stale, very vanilla, not a lot going on other than Saquon making big plays happen. And then, and it happened in this game as well on the 4th down, Jalen Hurts making a big conversion as well. But when it comes to the consistency, we don't see it.
Well, hey, listen, let me pull up my stats right quick, because I do believe I want to look at the numbers on Jalen. So Jalen was 15 for 20, 128. He lost 63 yards on 7 sacks. Okay. Couple of drop balls. I just, we're going to look at that and say, oh my God, he completed almost 70% of his passes. I'm not alarmed by it. I'm not going to get bent out of shape about it, because you know what, Mark? This football team has won how many games this year? They're now 16-3, right? Mm-hmm. They've been operating like this all year long. Like, people want to act like that this is something new. That, like, Jalen at one point was throwing for 300 yards a game, and now all of a sudden he can barely break 200 yards a game. They have been playing like this, and they've been winning like this all season long. Now, we all agree that they need to be more dynamic with the talent they have around them. But if the defense continues to play the way that they play, and the offensive line continues to operate like they operate, you know Superman Saquon is going to do what he's going to do each and every week. What's for us to believe that, you know, next week is going to be any different? Because like I said in pregame, you know, we get them at home. We beat them pretty handily, playing against a Jaden Daniels who's, you know, for the most part, he's injured. So they got him in bubble wrap. They don't want him running around. So we really don't get the flavor. We don't get the full effect of what Jaden Daniels really is until they come to the Lincoln Financial Field. And all of a sudden, you know, this guy's running around, you know, on full display. His talents are on full display. And I think his speed kind of caught us off guard because we didn't know that he was that fast, that he was that elusive, that he could make people miss the way that he made people miss, that he could throw the ball dynamically, you know, so accurately and read the way that, because he didn't do it in the first game. Okay?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, Detroit ran for 201 yards on their defense last night. Eagles run with easily 200 yards on their defense. I think that's going to be the telling tale. I don't want to put this game in the hands of their passing game, the way we've dissected it and the way it makes everybody nervous. When I look at that Washington team, first of all, that kid Jaden Daniels, he's not a rookie. I don't know. You can call him what you want, but that guy's got ice water in his veins. And he's a playmaker, a consistent playmaker. And this young team believes in itself right now. Who would have thought that Washington, of all teams, would be standing there talking about playing in the NFC Championship game? And they can light up a scoreboard. Do you want to see the Eagles getting a shootout with this particular team? Now, even though he's a rookie quarterback, can't say he's a rookie now is because he's got X amount of games under his belt. And obviously they've come a long way in a lot of things that they do. But the way the Eagles are playing, they've got to control the clock and keep this Jaden Daniels off the football field next week. You know, we talked about how they won an ugly game last week against the Packers. They won the game. We talk about how they won an ugly game and the defense had to come to the rescue in this particular game today, but the bottom line is they won the game. They're in a NFC Championship game. But you keep riding this particular wave, at some point it comes back to drown you.
Mm-hmm. Now, here's the thing. I don't want to get in a shootout with anybody, all right? Now, but because of this team's defense, because of this team's offense, I have confidence they can beat anybody. And, yes, because of this team's quarterback, I have confidence they can beat anybody. But I think all those things can be said and be true, but still think that today wasn't the sharpest performance by Jalen Hurts. Can we agree on that? Or do we think this is weather, this is a bad passing game overall? And I'm not saying that it's all on Jalen. I'm just saying in moments where he had to be sharp and even just at the least avoid a sack, he didn't do that. That's my only concern with Jalen Hurts. Also, injuries, we'll see what the week bears. Obviously, we're not going to know that until later in the week. I would assume he still went out there and finished the game. They had one tush-push with him in it. He got carried, of course, on that tush-push. It ends up being negated because of a Lane Johnson false start. But all in all, I look at Jalen Hurts as still a guy that's not going to cost you a Super Bowl. He's not going to cost you the game. But today, I thought he absolutely could have been a heck of a lot more sharp. Is that a fair assessment?
No, it's fair. And what I'm doing now is I'm trying to find the stats on the two Eagles game so I can figure out, you know, what the Eagles did run-wise against the Commanders. Because when Jalen went out of the game, the second game, it became impossible for us to run. I think that Saquon, for the first time this year in the second half, he averaged something like 1.2 yards a carry. So,
well, let's get the numbers on that. We're due for a break anyway.
Okay.
So we'll crunch some numbers on that, and we'll come back. Also, our final takeaways of the game. And, hey, look, folks, the bottom line is no matter which way you slice it, your Philadelphia Eagles are one win away, one home win away from going back to the Super Bowl. We'll break that down even more when we return on the Bet Parks postgame show presented by Ponley Hockey. The 360 Lounge here at Parks Casino. Enjoy some ice-cold drinks and some fantastic entertainment.
Pride, passion, and persistence. These are the values that drive us all at Ron Jaworski Golf. We strive to deliver outstanding conditions as well as playability for golfers of all ages and abilities. Our championship golf courses offer a variety of challenges from a link-style walk along the river to an escape into the pines and everything in between. My team at Ron Jaworski Golf is committed to to delivering memorable experiences every single day. See all we do at ronjaworskigolf.com.
It's happening again. Those missed tackles are starting to stack up. Your friends pleading with players who can't hear them, sweating it out week after week. But not you. Why? Because whether they score or not, there's always another way to win on the BetParx app. New casino users score up to $1,000 bonus back in their first 24 hours.
At Pawn Lee Hockey, we're neither a pawn nor a hockey team. In fact, I don't even know how to skate.
Cut.
We're the injury law firm that you want fighting for you.
With our vast network of attorneys across the country, we know the playbook on injury law.
It's how Pond Lee Hockey recovered billions of dollars for more than 100,000 injured and disabled workers.
And we know we can do the same for you.
So give Pond Lee Hockey a call. No other law firm will fight harder for you.
And you'll never pay a dime until we win.
Oof. Stuck paying for that old phone? Don't be. You know, at Verizon, we'll pay off your phone, and you'll get iPhone 16 with Apple Intelligence on us. Now with Genmoji. That's a value of up to $1,600. Only on Verizon.
This upcoming segment is brought to you by Stay at Home Home Care. Welcome back to the BetParx postgame show presented by Pond Lee Hockey. Mark Farzetta, Seth Joyner, and Derek Gunn with you on the heels of a 28-22 Eagles victory in the divisional round of the postseason against the L.A. Rams. Saquon Barkley goes north of 200 yards against the Rams, including a 70-plus yard touchdown run and a 60-plus touchdown run against the Rams today. Jalen Carter plays out of his mind with 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, and also 3 quarterback hits, including a clutch sack to help seal the victory for the Eagles on the final possession by the Rams. But, gentlemen, we were talking about Saquon Barkley before the break and what he had done against the Washington Commanders, who's going to be their next opponent in the NFC Championship game a week from today in South Philadelphia. Hopefully not as snowy as it was today, obviously. But in the first game against the Commanders, he put up 146 yards in that Eagles victory. Now, in that second game, Seth, he ended up with 150 yards, which on the end of it looks good. But if you break it down, it wasn't so hot.
Yeah, because once Jalen Hurts went out of the game, you know, I think he rushed for 47 yards in the entire second half of that football game. So when we talk about where Jalen is and his availability to actually run the ball, I talked about it after that game. I said, listen, you have to understand that Jalen Hurts is a bigger reason why Saquon is so successful running the football, you know, as Saquon actually running the football. Because when you're running those RPOs and those read options, when Jalen is an option, that takes one guy out of the mix because somebody's got to account for him if he decides to pull the ball and take off running with it. You know, without Jalen in the game, you didn't have to worry about Kenny Pickett doing that. So they just loaded the box to take Saquon away in that second game, and they just decided, okay, you know, we'll take our chance trying to get to the quarterback and limit the passing game. That, in my opinion, is why they lost the game. So one of the most critical things in this game coming up is how healthy can Jalen be? Mm-hmm. Because, you know, listen, the Eagles are averaging. They ran for 211 in the second game total. 228 in the first game total. That's a lot of darn yards. But you got to realize that the majority of those yards, you had Jalen Hurts in the game, and he was a threat. If you don't have him in the game, that changed the dynamics of the run game. And I can promise you what Washington's going to do, they're going to load the box the same way they load the box against Kenny Pickett, and they're going to dare us to beat them throwing the football. They're going to do everything they can to keep Jalen Hurts from running the football.
If they can identify
Saquon Barkley, I should say.
If they can identify that Jalen can't run the way he's accustomed to running, and as he did on that 44-yard touch, that's going to change the whole defensive concept of how they approach the Eagles. And that might make the game a lot closer than we anticipated being. I expect it to be a good, close game to begin with, but even more so if Jalen is – now, the good thing is he's got 6 days to get this thing right. Whatever it is with this knee, he's got 6 days to get it right. If they can identify early on it, if we're sitting in a green room and we can see it, You know, coaches on the field can identify a lot quicker than we can. If that's the case, Washington is going to change how they attack this Eagles offense and defend against their run.
The other thing, too, go ahead, Mark.
No, please finish that point. Yeah.
No, because it's going on the defensive side of the ball, so go ahead.
Oh, okay. All right, so next we'll talk about the defense, but just to put a button on this one, what do you guys take away from the Eagles' offensive line? You look at 7 sacks against Jalen Hurts today.
Right.
You look at some plays that got blown up. You look at Lane Johnson, unfortunately, as we mentioned, on what would have been a tush-push touchdown, ended up settling for a field goal, drove them back 5 yards. Lane Johnson, of course, got that false start. And then on other plays, you see Jordan Mailata beating Jalen Hurts down the field by about 15 yards. You also see 2 huge runs by Saquon Barkley. What are you to take away from the way the Eagles' offensive line played today? And also, one last thing. 9 sacks they were able to get last week, the Rams on the Vikings.
Right.
They got 7 today. I thought one of the things the Eagles were going to be able to hang their hats on today was the offensive line keeping Jalen Hurts clean, or at least no snow on him, I should say. So when you look at a game like today, how do you evaluate the offensive line?
For me, there's no questioning what they are in the run game, and I thought they could have been even more prolific in the run game, D-Gun, if they were to run quick hitting run plays instead of trying to get on the edges. I understand why they do it with Saquon, because you can move the defense. But a lot of times when you're playing against fast defenses, the last thing you want to do is try to get horizontal to the line of scrimmage to get vertical. Sometimes, when you get the offensive line and the defensive line engaged and the running backs hitting the hole at the same time they're still engaged, the defenders can't get off the blocks. So I would love to have seen a little more of that. But in the passing game, it seems to me sometimes that, they have some breakdowns. They really have had some breakdowns. Like on one sack, I saw, Cam Jurgens turn left when there was nobody to block left and let a free runner. He was on Jalen like that. And I'm like, what's going on? And even some of the stunts, they seem to me to have a little bit of a problem with the stunts. And I'm not putting it all on the offensive line. I don't want anybody to misconstrue what I'm saying, because there were some of these sacks that were clearly Jalen's fault. You just got to get rid of the ball. You got to figure out how to throw the ball away, and move on and live to play another day. But there were times where, you had to believe after the last game and you not being able to get a whole lot of pressure on Jalen Hurts, that the approach is going to be different. And we talked about the big guys versus the little guys. You're not going to leave the little guys just standing in a stationary position to play against big guys where you can just maul them and beat them up. If you need to get pressure on the quarterback and you can't get there with your one-on-ones, then you run stunts. And the Eagles' offensive line, to me, had a little bit of a problem handling some of the stunts that they were seeing from the Rams today. And I assure you, you're going to get some of that from the Rams, because Dan Quinn is a great defensive mind. And he's going to look at that game plan and he's going to say to himself, hey, we can use some of that. We can run some of these games to create confusion and obvious passing downs.
Well, you talked about Cam Jurgens. What about the one play that we were looking at, Mekhi Becton? The one play Mekhi Becton went right. He's lined up over a guy, went right, let the guy come right through and sack Jalen on a particular play. And you wonder, what happened there? Did he not hear the right line call? Did he not hear the right audible? Or what was the case there? Because we hadn't seen that before. So Cam Jurgens did it once, Mekhi Becton did it once as well. So obviously Jeff Stoutland will get that corrected, because you're going to face a Washington team. They're playing with house money. Nobody expected Washington, of all the teams that you talked about in the NFC possibly facing the Eagles or Detroit in the NFC Championship game, nobody thought it would be Washington. And yet here this team comes with house money. They brought in 18 new players this season. They have a rookie quarterback. All of a sudden they've won 14 games and on the cusp of going to the Super Bowl with a rookie quarterback. Now, you got to come through the Eagles' house to do it, which is one of the more difficult places in the NFL to play. But the bottom line is, as we've talked about time and time again, as we've seen time and time again, any and everything can possibly happen on any given Sunday.
And to jump over on the defensive side for a second, the offense changed in that second game against the Commanders when Jalen went out. But the other thing we also have to remember, and I'm going to go back and look at the game book when I get home tonight to see exactly how that transpired. The minute that C.J. Gardner-Johnson left the game, the defense went to hell in a handbasket too. So the dynamic of having him back on the field, especially in the pass game, because he's the one that's doing the communicating. He's communicating with everybody else. Him and Reed are communicating, and that spreads to everybody else in the secondary and to the linebackers.
Right.
They lost that element when he went out of the game, and it hurt them profusely. So now you've got him back, and up until that point in time, before Jalen got hurt, and before CJ got tossed out of that game, the Eagles were handling the Washington Commanders. Okay? They were handling them. And the minute that those two guys went out, the game went to hell in the handbasket.
22 points in the fourth quarter.
And remember, Devontae Smith makes that catch. That's
over.
another win.
Yes,
That's another win for the Eagles. But I will just say this. I mean, I wanted to see the Commanders in round one of the playoffs. I guess, fortunately, that didn't happen. I still had confidence the Eagles would be able to win that game. But some people might default to the idea of the Commanders, they won their Super Bowl already by beating the Lions. I'm not going to fall back on that. As Derek Gunn mentioned earlier, you have a guy in Jaden Daniels he is no rookie anymore. I know it might be his rookie season technically, but he hasn't been a rookie since the first couple of games he was out there. And former Eagle Zach Ertz also said that from the Commanders' locker room. The other thing you can't take for granted is how well they're playing, defensively and offensively. Now, defense, things got away, but they forced those turnovers from Jared Goff, including the offense cashing in 2 turnovers yesterday, 4 touchdowns, and they won that game by 14 points. So there's some math for you right there. But also, Dan Quinn is the head coach of the greatest collapse in a Super Bowl in the history of the Super Bowl. They are not taking anything for granted under Dan Quinn, that's for sure. So when they come to Philadelphia, they're going to be raring to go, obviously.
Two more points that have to be considered when we look at this juggernaut of a win that they had against the Detroit Lions yesterday. The Detroit Lions are playing with a plethora of backups on their defense. Okay? That's the first thing. What is it, 13 defenders on injury reserve?
And then they lost one of their starting corners in the game with a broken arm.
So that's the first thing. So as impressive as that looked, let's not take that into consideration, that you had a bunch of backups and a bunch of third-team players that were playing for the Detroit Lions last week. And leading up to the playoffs, defensively, they hadn't been playing that well. The offense had been carrying them and scoring so much points that it made it easier for them to play defense. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you had Jared Goff with 3 interceptions yesterday. You turn the ball over that many times, you deserve to lose. Jalen Hurts is not going to take the chance to turn the ball over that many times. So I still, even as lackluster as last week's win look and as lackluster as this week's look, especially from the passing perspective, I still feel really good about the Eagles' chances of winning this game next week when you consider all the things that we just talked about.
All right. Now I'm going to ask you this question. It's the last question I'm going to ask you guys for the show today. What will you be carrying with you for the next 7 days? Before we come back to sit here for the pregame show, over the next 7 days, it's your immediate takeaway from this game. We haven't watched the film yet. We haven't seen the All-22 yet. What will be rattling around in your brain between now and 7 days from now about this victory?
First and foremost, Jalen's health. Secondly, how at this stage of a season, because we've been harping on this for weeks, can Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni devise a game plan to make that passing game more respectable and more diversified and more unpredictable in 7 days? Because we've talked about this for weeks in and weeks out. We haven't seen much of a variation in it. And I don't know if we will at this point. You know, they said when you get to a certain point, you are who you are. My concern is they are who they are in the passing game at this particular point. But I do believe Washington's going to come in here and they're going to throw some things at them the Eagles haven't seen. They're just going to toss the book. I mean, because they're that close. Why wouldn't you? So how will the Eagles counter? We know the running game is going to be dominant, but at times you're going to have to do something different through the air. What are you going to do?
Seth, what are you going to be thinking about for the next week?
I'm going to be thinking about how confident I am in this football team in spite of, how they won these 2 games. Because the truth of the matter is, you guys hear me say all the time, how you win is as important as if you win, because it's a precursor to, future performance. The Eagles have performed like this, people, all season long. They are 16-3 and they won game after game after game after game the same way. The minute that we thought, Mark, that this thing may fall apart, the defense made a play. They play complementary football. When the offense isn't playing well, the defense holds it down until the offense can figure it out. When the offense is slipping a little bit, the defense makes plays until the defense can figure it out. Jake Elliott may miss a couple of, extra points, but boom, he kicks 3 field goals in the fourth quarter. That's really a major difference in whether we win this football game or not. And as bad as everybody wants to think and believe or say, you're entitled to your opinion, that Jalen Hurts has played, the guy just wins. He makes the plays that are necessary when they need to be made. This team makes plays when it's necessary to be made, and they just win. And until I see them lose a game playing the way that they're playing, I have supreme confidence that they'll figure out a way to get to Louisiana.
I'm with you, gentlemen. I mean, Gunnar, you talk about the health of Seth Joyner, or you talk about the health. Well, Seth Joyner's feeling great. Let me just say that. But when you talk about the health of Jalen Hurts, obviously that's the number one thing. Seth, as you mentioned, you talk about just getting a little bit more exotic. You got to talk about the defense stepping up, making a play. I think every football fan has that internal clock when you're thinking to yourself, now would be a really good time for a defensive, takeaway. The Eagles got it on 2 different occasions today. And then when it came time to be clutch and extend a drive, you got that from Jalen Hurts. When it came time to be clutch and end a drive, Jalen Carter made sure he took care of that. And it's because of that and the way they've been doing it all season long, I have confidence this team is going to be playing in the Super Bowl.
I agree, but you know what's going to happen. The health of Jalen Hurts is going to be the topic of discussion all week long, mainly because the Eagles aren't going to tell you anything.
Yeah, hopefully there's forthcoming. Yeah, hopefully a little bit more forthcoming than the concussion.
That's not going to happen.
No, not in a million years.
One iota.
Have you heard anything? I didn't even ask you yet.
No,
I didn't think so. You would have told me. Yeah.
Yes. I tell you what, though, he's a gamer. He's going to come out and do whatever it is that he can do to get it done. If it means that on some of those runs where he's able to rip off, like today, 44 yards, he can only get 15 out of it, he'll take the 15 out of it. It's a first down. We keep the drive alive. So whatever the circumstances are, whatever the injury is, by his words in his post-game press conference and his post-game interview on the field, I finished the game, didn't I? That tells me that come hell or high water, no matter what the circumstances are, the only way that he ain't going to play and try to do the best that he can to help this team win is that they cut that damn leg off.
That's right. You're right.
Wow. The Philadelphia Eagles, ladies and gentlemen, are 1 win away from making it back to the Super Bowl. It would be a second time for Jalen Hurts. It would be a second time, of course, for Nick Sirianni. And it would be a third time for Lane Johnson, third time for Brandon Graham. We hope he is able to get back there, not play, but be back there with the team as well. But they are just 1 win away and 1 game left in South Philadelphia, thanks to your Philadelphia Eagles pulling out the 28-22 victory of the L.A. Rams over the L.A. Rams today. For Seth Joyner, for Derek Gunn, from Parks Casino, for Bailey Livesey, I'm Mark Farzetta. Have a great week. We'll look forward to seeing you guys next Sunday.
Be careful on the roads.